All right, guys, we're gonna get video 2 started. And if you haven't checked out video 1, I suggest you do that so you can kind of make sense of some of the things we're talking about here. So video 2 is gonna be highlighting our pride and joy, which is Bougee's Kamino, rest in peace. We lost her to a closed pyramica when she was pregnant with her second litter. So it was a devastating moment for us. Probably the closest I've been to just walking away from dogs in general, you know. I had just got my appendix taken out, and when we found her in the backyard, we went in to eat some family dinner after a good day, just chilling outside. She was normal, running around, being a dog in the front yard, hanging out with us. And we put her in the backyard, went to go get a bite to eat, and by the time we came out, she had completely seized up and basically was going septic. So it was a tough one. It still is a tough one. And I think that her legacy was going to be cemented no matter what. Like, that was something I put in my brain. So when I talk about the Kamino kids a lot, it's because of the value that she brought to us as not only as a dog and a breeding dog, but just as a being that she was. She was amazing to be around. She was full of joy. She had the best temperament you could ask for. She was just everything that we wanted. And so to have a dog that you can say that, and I think that's something that, you know, breeders really need to check themselves on. And it's one thing to, you know, love your dogs, but I think when you're critical in a way that's going to help you move your program forward and you're looking at what your dog isn't, that's also really important. And to sit here and say that Kamino was missing anything, I'd be lying to you if I said that she was. You know, she was everything from head to toe that we wanted in the breeding that created her. She was the best of Johnny. She was the best of Lilo. And so, you know, losing her was a huge blow to us as a family. I had just literally probably 2 days before, I still had stitches in my gut from having an appendix taken out in an emergency surgery. And I remember going out and literally picking my dog up and trying to take her to the hospital or to the vet. And it was, man, it was one of those moments where I think people, you know, they say that they want to breed. And when you get moments like that, because they're going to happen, you know, they will happen. And those are the moments that you find out how bad that you really want what you're doing with your program, what you want with your dogs, and really just the type of person you are, you know? And I know it sounds dramatic to some, but if you haven't been in that position, I pray that you never are. And for those that have been, they will tell you the weight that, you know, carries on you even after the incident is over and you're trying to pull yourself back together. It's still there. It's still fresh. And, you know, I think the one thing that is always a little more difficult for us, and that's why we're a lot more private and closed off with our dogs, is because these are our pets. You know, they live in the house with us. They're our pets. They are members of our family. I've got, I think, 6 of my dogs tattooed on me, including Kamino. And, you know, these dogs are handled by my kids, my wife, my mother-in-law, anybody in my family that comes over and helps us, or even just wants to check out the puppies. They're handled by them from day one. So, you know, Kamino's legacy is definitely one that I think the scope of work that she had to add to that legacy was going to be pretty monumental. But even the one breeding that she did do, I will stand by as a breeder and say that that's something that we're always going to be proud of. I've said that, I think I even said in the last video. And if I didn't, you're going to hear me say it. You know, there's a reason I'm hype on the Kamino kids, and it's because I know what they are. So, and that's because I know what their mom was. So what was Kamino? Why are we using her as our dog to line breed off of and really try to create this, you know, momentum moving forward with Project Justable? Kamino was, for me, the closest thing to what I would view as perfection in my eyes as a breeder, as an XL bully should be. I think when you look at what she pulled from both parents, it was so complimentary, and it was everything, literally everything that we wanted. So you look at, we'll start with her head. I mean, she 100% bullied up her mom's head. She added a lot more of the bulldog features that we talked about in video 1. You can see it. I'll keep attaching photos here so you guys can see it. And while she added the bulldog, she also still had a beautiful look about her that her mom did. So I think that's a perfect example in Kamino of combining the right bulldog stuff with the right terrier stuff and getting a product that you really love. You know, her snout was boxy, but it had enough length that she could breathe. She was extremely extremely athletic. Probably female-wise, the most athletic all-around dog that we have had. I mean, this dog could jump and land on all fours in the back of our Tahoe with ease, you know? There's a video that I'm gonna show you guys here. I think I've already shown it, of her hopping, just, you know, messing around with the stick at the river. And she would do kind of that stuff all the time. I know that when she was with a buddy of mine for a little bit, that she even jumped on the ping pong table same way and landed on all fours and just like from sitting, you know. So extreme athlete while having the bulldog features, which to me is a double whammy, you know. So had the face that looked bulldog, had really good cheek, really good top skull for me, what I was wanting at the time. And then shoulder set was awesome. I loved her shoulder set. I think, you know, if I would nitpick and say I wanted her a little bit wider, yes, but ultimately the frame that I got of her, it was still complimentary, right? So she said she had great shoulder set for their head type. It was complimentary. It was super, super functional. She had amazing bone. The one thing that I would say that I think we did improve on of her versus her mom was we added a little heavier bone, and something that, and I don't know how to explain it scientifically, but there's a bone taper that I see in some of the dogs that we've had in the past. And what I think she did is put us a step forward in making that, you know, front form a little bit thicker and even the whole way down. So that's one thing I see in her son Jedi that I absolutely love. His bone looks the same width from the top to the bottom, and he's got a lot of bone. So that's one thing I thought we took a big step forward with her. Super, super short back. One of the things about Johnny that I don't think that gets talked about a lot is the ability that he can throw short backs. If you look at what he's done in other programs, even outside of ours, you know, the dog can throw short back. And I do think that that has something to do with the bulldog. Can I tell you exactly what? No, but when I think about it, it's like, you know, I do think that he pulled a little bit from that. And also the Jessica Rabbit stuff, right? If you look at the bulldogs that they used to create that, combining those two, it just seemed to really shrink things up even more. And Lilo herself had a really good back, but Kamino got even shorter. So, you know, we improved there. And then really the rear, Lilo had an excellent rear, which is exactly what Johnny needed. You know, Johnny really was he didn't have a horrible rear by any means, but it's something that we knew we needed to add more to before we move forward. And so Lilo did exactly that. And really we pulled that Jessica, you know, phenotype out as far as the muscle definition and substance goes, but we just beefed it up a little bit with the Johnny side. So I think that when I think about Kamino and all the stuff that went, all the thought process that went into creating her, to have your thoughts come out and be manifested in a dog like her is that's an accomplishment. And I will say that I'm very proud of that. I will say that you know, if you look at everything that she did have, she checks all the boxes. She wasn't missing a single box. And I think that that's something that I think early on I got really focused on breeding for specific traits or only looking at specific traits, whether that be a really blown out, super wide dog up front that was lacking rear, or a dog that had an amazing rear but didn't have a very good top line. You know, there's things that we can really nitpick and pay attention to and just look and see in these dogs that need fixing. And when I look at Kamino, honestly, and maybe I'm being biased, but, you know, I probably am a little bit because she's my dog, but for what I was happy with, that I can hang my hat on, if I could make Caminos all day long, I wouldn't change a thing. That's how, you know, perfect she was to us in our eyes. And so, you know, I say this with obviously some bias too, but I don't think I've seen a better dog than Kamino. From head to toe, for the type that I want, what I deem an XL American Bully, what she was, I haven't seen a dog like her. We've got the photos to show, and I know a lot of people didn't really get to even see her, but even in the videos, you can see she's balanced. She is complete. She is balanced. She was everything that we needed to take the next step with getting dogs that we did off of her. And I think that moving on to her litter and what she did for us in that litter was, you know, she was everything that Tarzan needed. Everything that he needed, she was. Everything that he needed or she needed from him, we got. So I think that it's just another example of complementary breeding. And I think what I learned with that breeding, that's where I want to say that if you're a breeder, man, if you guys can find the female, create the female, let me say that, create the female that you want to build off of, you've got something. And when you do, I think everything becomes a lot clearer. I think it's also a little bit more financially sound that, you know, when you get a female, you're giving yourself options to pick from, you know. Take it as somebody that I think I bought 3 studs, you know, before I even, like, dogs to own and have. And I loved all those dogs, not taking anything away from them. But they didn't do for me what Kamino did ultimately. And that's because she's going to give you more. You have more chances with a female to, when you put a breeding together that you like, to pick from that stock and move forward, you know? And then when it's in your own hands, it's in your own house, and you get to see these dogs every day, you really fine tune what you're looking for, what you're looking at. And so, yeah, long story short, I remember this boxing metaphor about how, you know, I think a hook will make you famous on Instagram, but a jab will take you around the world, right? And I think that it's that concept of making sure that all the little things are right before you try to swing for the fence. And so when we got everything right with Kamino, that's when we swung for the fence with Tarzan. And I think one of the cool things about Tarzan is getting to work on a breeding with my best female to one of my friends and Matt Howard's best dog that I think he's ever had. That's a cool feeling too. I think that Matt will be the first to tell you we've had more conversations than both of our wives would probably like to admit that we've had time-wise away from them, and even away from some family stuff for sometimes, just to talk dog, figure out plans, you know, run breedings by each other and just chop it up and keep it about dogs and dogs and dogs, and really become obsessed with this pursuit of, you know, making better dogs. And I think that when I look at Tarzan, I look at the manifestation of a lot of time and effort that went in behind the scenes, that Matt and Erica, his wife Erica, that we are so grateful for. The things that they gave us outside of Instagram, as far as helping whelp litters, picking up the phone anytime we had a problem with the dog, always being there for any question, even though I might ask it 1,000 times because I'm a chronic worrier. Having seen them get a dog like Tarzan was amazing. And then getting to work with them with our best production, that litter to us, I mean, I think that the litters that we have in the future is so exciting, but there's something really, really special about that breeding for who we got to do it with, the dogs we got to do it with, and then the result that we got. I think that, you know, I'll say this as someone who I would like to call obsessed with the XLs, obsessed with these dogs. I would say that I don't know if I've seen a litter as consistent as what Camino and Tarzan did across the board from the siblings. And I say this to people that ask and they want to hear about why, is when you think about the inconsistencies that you can get in the XL world, because we're trying to create bigger dogs on bigger frames. I've learned to give myself a little bit of grace on what I can expect from certain dogs because of the fluctuation of the bloodlines, like we talked about in the first video. But when you talk about the consistency across the board on that litter, man, I haven't seen one that's that consistent, me personally. And again, maybe I'm being biased. I'm not here to really, you know, compare, but I will tell you as a breeder, and I call myself a breeder now. I don't think that's a term that people should call themselves until they put in the work. I will say this: if I can sit back and be happy with 4 of those dogs as breeding stock to move forward with in any program, especially mine and the people that invested in them, and say, I'm happy with, yeah, they might have a little different flavor, they might have a little bit different look to them that I'd like to change here and there. That's every dog, right? But to say there's 4 dogs of 6 that we can breed off of and create something special, not just, you know, better, but special, you know, that to me is when I'm saying, okay, you did something right. You're headed down the right path, and that's something to be proud of. And as someone that's been a little bit of a historian and been in a lot of conversations behind the scenes about different waves that even have happened in the XL community, I can say that I am proud of that. I know that the conversations I have, and I do think there's a little bit of an influence that we've had on certain things, that to see that breeding kind of all come together the way it did and then to pan out, I felt like that was a big stepping stone for us to say, hey, we do know what we're talking about. We're on the right track. We don't know everything. I'm not gonna ever say that, but we know enough to know that we're on the right direction. We know that we're thinking and aligning ourselves in the right way with the right people to take these steps. And so the Kamino kids in that litter and how complimentary that was. It was a double down on exactly what Kamino was, and it was proving us right on her and showing really the world what she could do. And I would say this humbly too. I think that that's the best litter Tarzan has had to this date. And I could tell you why, but that's how I feel as a breeder. And you know, that's another thing I want to talk about with this whole project, right? If you aren't believing in your stuff, then don't breed it. What's the point of breeding it? If you can't say, and you'll know, my inner circle will tell you, like, I genuinely don't even like talking this way. This is uncomfortable for me because I don't like the sense of ego, or even I think I'm hard on myself, and this is life in general. I know other people are as well, about accomplishments for yourself. You know, it's always looking to the next step. And I think it's important to really take a step back and look at what you've done. And that's what we've been able to do with a dog like Kamino and what we bred and got out of her and her kids. And so if you don't feel that way, maybe you need to change something. And maybe that's something in the dogs, or maybe it's something in you. You need to figure it out. But from where I'm standing, we had the best Tarzan litter. Kamino did everything that we needed to do, and I'm proud of that. And I'll stand by that. And I know that's something that the people that invested into those dogs, Chris, my buddy from Buffalo Bayou in particular, has maybe the best dog on the whole litter. You know, one of the best things I get from people that have seen Jedi and use Jedi now is how happy they are with the dog when they see them in person, and how it is so different consistently, collectively, across the board than other dogs that they've bought, other dogs that they've seen. So if your clientele is telling you something that's the same way you feel, I'm not going to sit here and say that that is ego. I think that validation is not even the right word either, but I think it's the realization that, hey, we are taking the right steps. We are going down the right path. And so it's one thing to be proud of your dogs, but when you also have people that invested with you and believed in you and trusted you and your vision to see it come around full circle, and they're really happy with it and they're ecstatic to move forward with it, that's very special. So when I think about the Kamino kids and I think about that breeding, I'm very stoked about it. And so really, and how this all pulls into play to Project Justable is this. Kamino to me is always going to be the most valuable dog, because still to this day, I love her kids. There's something about that dog that I want more of. Now, we fixed some things with her kids and added more substance in some ways, bigger dogs, but the frame that we want to get back to and the muscle definition is Kamino. So this is where the insert of Rocky was so important. You now see, and you can hear how important Kamino was to me and to us in our program, but the dog that she was is the dog that I believe Rocky is. So I see two very different bred dogs that carry a lot of the same features. And even now we know, with some of the bear in the background, a little bit of a close geno to some extent, which only to me excites me a little bit more, because you can double tap on some stuff that, needs to be. But, when you can put two more dogs that are complementary in the same pedigree, I think, again, we are continually working forward and taking the Kamino line and her kids to the next level. And so what we saw in the first breeding with Naboo, shifting gears to that breeding, was the same impact that Tarzan had to Kamino was the same impact that we saw with Rocky to Naboo. That's a big statement. So if you could think about that, how you're taking two in Tarzan and Rocky, both to Kamino and her daughter, and having the same impact on the dogs when what you're looking at as far as the phenotype goes, that's an incredible feeling. Something right there is starting to line up saying, hey, I think we can really trust a little more in this blood to continue to go down this route. And that's why we're going to start line breeding off of that. That's why Kamino is so important. And so I think in the next couple of videos, we'll talk about everything that went in. I'm really excited for you guys. Chris Moore and Gina Moore have been some of the best people that we've met as far as information and just real from the cloth dog breeders, like dog people. I know my grandpa, they bred dogs, obviously before I was born. And one of the things in terms that he used, which I really admired, was dogmen. And dogmen of old, man, you want to talk about some people cut from a different cloth in a different time. Back when dogs had a purpose, and dogs had to have a purpose to be in the household and to be fed and had money spent on. Dogman is a term that to me, it's almost like the highest honor I think that a breeder can earn. And I tell you, Chris and Gina, oof, dog men and women, I tell you, the information that they've been giving, the insight, and just being able to work with them with what I believe, and I think they'll tell you too, is one of their crown achievements. In Rocky, after 25 years plus of breeding, to be able to work with that too, it's again, a point proven to us that we're headed down the right step, working with the right people. And that is what has led me, and I think it's a good spot to end this video. That is what's led me to talk about this. You know, I didn't talk a lot about the Camino and Tarzan litter. There wasn't a lot of availability on it and stuff, but you know, at that time in my brain, it was more important to show people, right? Show people. I've said this time and time again on my page and comments. I don't like showing my face. I like showing my dogs. So that's what we did with that one. But the weight of that, working with those kind of people, and like you guys have heard me explain how important that breeding was, to then match that in so many ways and take this to the even next level with working with Gina and Chris with Rocky, this is starting to shape up to be something really special. And one of the things that I really am going to stand behind and believe in is that while Project Justable might seem new to some people, this is not reinventing the wheel. We're not doing anything that hasn't been done. We're not trying to lay credit to creating a new breed. I was ignorant enough to think that that's what we were going to do. I'll admit it. I mean, I've had a pamphlet that I've had for almost 2 years now of like, we're going to make a Justable, it's going to be a breed, all this kind of stuff. And boy, man, you know, talking to breeders that really know what's up, real dog people, it's like, yeah, I don't think you really have what it takes to do that. And I will say that I don't. But what I do have is a passion that is based, an influence that is based in the XLs. And what I'm trying to get to is that although we're not reinventing the wheel, we're cooking with ingredients that people haven't in the past. That's a heck of a statement to make, and I'm going to stand by that. And what I mean by that is, as far as what we're line breeding to, we've got a step up, in my opinion, and I'll put Kamino up against any dog at any time. As far as a complete dog, I will stand by it. And I'll put my stamp of approval on that. The fact that we're line breeding to that, I think that we're cooking with something alone, and with just her piece of this puzzle, I will stand on that singular piece no matter what. But then when you mix in a dog like Tarzan, and if you haven't seen a dog like Tarzan, you'll see exactly why I think that dog is the biggest blessing and is the full circle moment for Matt and Erica as breeders to get a dog like that. If you see that dog into Kamino with the Kamino kids, we're also line breeding off of him. Make no mistake about it. When you go that and you pair that with a dog like Rocky, Rocky's not a normal dog either, if you haven't seen him. So the point of this Justable project to me is I want people that invest in us in the future to understand why we're so excited about it. To understand that this is not just us up here talking smack, you know, filling your head with some fairy tale thing. No. Everything has been calculated, probably too much, to be honest with you, to work with the right people, with the right dogs, with one-of-one dogs. I think, let's make this clear. Dogs like Tarzan, Kamino, and Rocky, if you are willing to put them out there for other people to critique, and you're willing to take a step back from your own self and see what these dogs are, there's not many dogs that have ever walked the planet that look like that. From a standpoint of being freaky and complete and just overall the package of what those dogs are. To have all those dogs into one pedigree and then to line breed off of it and then to release that from us and share that with you guys, man, it's exciting. And I think it's something that you guys can get excited about too, for the people that want to invest in this is, hey, I know exactly where my dog is coming from. I'm excited as hell about that. I'm excited about the hybrid vigor that we're getting in. We'll talk about that term a little more with somebody that knows way more about that than Chris when we talk to him about Rocky, and just, man, that's going to be a good one. You guys stay tuned for that. But the excitement and the vision, I think, is why Project Justable is so important to me, because there's been so many steps. This was not a cluster breeding. This was not a one-time thing and done with Rocky. And one of the things that we do later in these videos is I'm going to tell you exactly what we're doing breeding wise in the future and give you exactly what we are going to do probably a year and a half to maybe 2 years in advance, depending on how things go, God willing, that everybody stays healthy along that way. But we're going to give you the blueprint. I'm going to tell you exactly what we're doing, what we see. If you pick up the phone and call me and you want to talk about what we're expecting in those litters, I'm going to have the best answer that I can for you because I'm thinking about it nonstop, number one. But two is I have a really good round table here of people that, you know, I believe in and believe in as people, but also as breeders that are really helping me along the way. So shout out to everybody involved. But, you know, I'm getting a little long-winded per usual. You get used to that in these videos. I get passionate. But, you know, Project Justable owes a lot to Kamino. I'm going to give her flowers. We would not be in this position if we did not create Kamino, who then created the Kamino kids with Tarzan. Now to move that in with Rocky, we are sitting in a really good position. Everything is going to kind of start making more sense to you guys. Like I said, we're going to give you the blueprint. I don't know many breeders who would do that, but I don't care. It's something that I'm passionate. I believe in that much to say, hey, you guys are going to want something from this. We'll also talk about, I'll give a little nugget here about how our F1s are registered as American bullies. Oh man. Well, let's get that conversation going. I'm so excited for that one. They're American bullies, whether you believe in that or not. They're registered as that. We will talk about that process and who we're working with on that in the future. And yeah, every video, my goal is to create a little more of that foundation before we move forward. So I hope that this video is long-winded and kind of all over the place as I can be, really reiterates the importance of Kamino and all of this and how that breeding with Tarzan and creating the Kamino kids that we did, that is the perfect sauce for us to line breed off of moving forward. And having a dog like Rocky, who is a little bit related, but enough of an out to add to the mix, is where this thing is going to get fun. It's something that has compelled me to talk about. I am not going to not be excited about this. If there's any problem with that, just turn the video off, because I promise you, the closer this gets, the more I see the results of Lego and Padme and Nala and these siblings that we got over here tucked away, living their best life with some family and friends. The more I see that marinate, the more excited I'm going to be, the more videos you guys are going to get. And just ultimately, the picture is going to become clearer and clearer. And what I hope for my sake and yours, is that as these dogs progress, the less you guys hear of me, the more you see of them. And that you guys can pick up your phone and have a point of reference with these videos to remember, man, I see exactly what he was talking about. I see the direction that they're going. And I actually believe in that for my own program. So we're going to keep making these videos. I'm going to try to keep getting better at them. Hopefully this one wasn't too boring. And really, really, really drive home the fact that Project Justable is not something, we're not reinventing the wheel. What we're trying to do is take it to the next level. Make these dogs something that you guys have never seen. Dogs that no matter how much hate might be up in your damn head from all the bullshit that this game can produce, that when the dog walks out or you see the dog, that the dog does exactly what it's supposed to do and stops you in your tracks, and that you realize that is a special dog. No matter who's on the other side of the leash, who created it, the animal that we are trying to create is going to be one that commands respect and deserves it, quite frankly. And I think that that's something that the XL Bully not only drastically needs, but it's what we owe this movement, this breed, if that's what you want to call it. And it's about damn time. Isn't it about time that people get this excited about breeding these dogs? It should be. And if it's not, if it's for the wrong reasons, then you shouldn't be doing it. Then don't do it. All right, my son's coming to bug me. Thank you guys for paying attention. I appreciate you guys for listening. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, shoot me a text. I'll give you my number. We can chop it up as much as you want about it. I'll talk dogs with anybody. And yeah, a little longer video this time. So appreciate you guys. And stay tuned. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to get out to the Beast of the East. Chris has been more than willing to give me some time to chop it up with him and bring you guys some better content videos with somebody that really knows what the hell he's talking about. And so I appreciate all the comments of the last video and how much you guys are learning. But I will say this, if you thought you've learned something with the first one, and maybe even learn something with this one, this next video, and who we're going to bring to the table to talk to. I'm excited for everybody collectively to get to sit there and experience and listen to the knowledge of a breeder that I look up to and really admire. So thanks for listening, guys.